Hey everyone, this is Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob.
And this is our podcast, Say Hello to My Little Film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
Yes, everybody, welcome to another great episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. Rob, you want to remind the audience what we do here?
Absolutely. On Say Hello to My Little Film, Ray and I take turns recommending movies that we love to the other to see if we can get them to love them as much as we do.
And now it's your turn to present me with a movie I've never seen before.
I am very excited about it.
You got a good one?
I have a good one, and you inspired me.
I inspire a lot of people. I'm not surprised.
I don't believe that. I don't believe you
you
inspire anybody, except for me in this one instance. Other than that, no. You are not an inspiring figure. Stop telling yourself that.
What's so wrong about me thinking I'm inspiring?
Okay, fine. You can think all you want.
Thank you. I will.
But you did. You inspired me because
in what way?
In last November.
Just tell me.
Last
I
November.
need a confidence booster now.
You showed me a Western.
I did.
You showed
I love
me
Westerns.
High Noon. So this November, I have decided to show you a Western.
It's a Western I've never seen?
It is a Western you've never seen.
I haven't seen actually that many, but I do love a lot of the ones I've seen.
But the interesting thing about this Western is it's not your ordinary Western.
Ooh.
So I think that's also going to be interesting. But it's also from a director that you have seen movies from before, but maybe would not have thought this guy did a Western.
Okay. So I love Westerns. I'm super into the ones I haven't seen. A lot of the older ones potentially is where I'm thinking you might be falling because I feel like I've seen a lot of the new ones. So, long way of saying, Rob, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got?
Well, Ray, what I got for you is a Robert Altman film.
Ooh.
You know I love Robert Altman.
Yeah.
I know you love The Player.
I do.
We've watched The Player before. And he has a very interesting career where he has made a lot of different kinds of movies over the course of his career before he passed and was kind of just a maverick. He kind of just did what he wanted to do, which I thought was he's a very inspiring figure in that regard. So because he tried so many different kinds of movies and different kinds of genres, that included a Western.
Okay. I'm not aware.
Yeah. So what I am showing you is the 1971 revisionist Western, McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
Ooh, now this is the time frame of Westerns that I am a fan of.
Yeah. So this is like kind of that early 70s new
Yeah.
Hollywood. So, I just a few months ago showed you 5 Easy Pieces.
Right.
So this is a movie that would also fall into that same category.
Okay.
So it's kind of that new Hollywood feel where like things were different. The studio system was outdated. So Altman was kind of just, that's why they call this kind of a revisionist Western. So it's different from that classic John Wayne High Noon type Western. Sometimes people actually have referred to this as an anti-Western.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So
and High Noon was kind of thought of in a similar light in a different way.
In a way, this is going to feel different
Yeah.
even from High Noon,
Right?
Because High Noon still had a little bit of that old Hollywood feel to it, where
Definitely.
this doesn't.
Yeah.
So what McCabe and Mrs. Miller is about it stars Warren Beatty, and he plays
Dick
McCabe.
Tracy. Oh, McCabe.
Well, he does play Dick Tracy
Yeah.
too, which is another movie I love. But he plays a guy in the Pacific Northwest at the turn of the last century, who kind of shows up in this town, and people kind of think he's a bigger deal than what he is, and it's kind of a boom town, and kind of gold rush, kind of boom town, and he decides he's going to start up a makeshift brothel.
Sure.
To kind of make some money.
Those seem like
as
they were
you
pretty
do.
profitable back then.
Exactly, as you do. And he ends up partnering up with Julie Christie, who's a great actress, and she plays Constance Miller and kind of manages the brothel for him. And then a mining company kind of comes into the picture, and it kind of goes from there. I don't want to give any more than that. But
it's not a cowboy shoot 'em up necessarily.
No. And the scenery is also a lot different. So when you think of like High Noon and stuff like that, you think of those kind of like plains,
Southwest.
like that Southwest kind of deserty type Western. This is the Pacific Northwest. It's very cold, a lot of snow, a lot of trees, a lot of that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Again,
5 Easy Pieces.
Right. So exactly. So it does a lot to subvert those Western conventions.
I like that.
So while you showed me High Noon last year, I wanted to show you something a little different, but in that kind of same vein.
Well, then let's watch it. I haven't seen this movie. It sounds very interesting. It comes from a time frame that I'm excited about. You've introduced me to a lot of stuff that was going around in this time, so I feel more educated. So I want to check it out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pause the podcast. We're going to invite you guys listening to the podcast to pause the podcast if you have not checked out McCabe and Mrs. Miller yet. That's how you say it?
McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
Great, I got it. Pause the podcast. Go check it out. When you're done, come back to this podcast, hit play, and hear what me and Rob have to say about it.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, everyone. Ray and I are back from watching McCabe and Mrs. Miller. We are back from a very wet, mucky Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I feel cold right now. That movie makes you feel cold.
So much snow.
Everywhere.
You don't see that in a lot in Westerns.
No, I actually love that. It's like this movie, like right up from the jump, shows you this is not the desert. Right. This is not Utah. This is not New Mexico or wherever you think these movies take place, and we are somewhere completely. We're thousands of miles away from that.
And even like certain mountainous Westerns that you might see, like they don't really even have this look. Like that rainy gray Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. I was watching, even thinking like, have I ever really seen a Western spend time in the snow? Like, it's hard to really place.
I know sometimes there's those movies that are like, the Western expansion, like when you're kind of going through like the Sierra Nevadas and stuff like that, and like some of that, those movies I do feel like when they're snowbound and things like that, there are certain instances of that, but you're right, not necessarily to the degree of this. Which I think, I said before, this was a revisionist Western, and as I said, some people called it an anti-Western, including Altman himself. But I think this might lead to our question, because I recently also watched part of a great conversation that's on the Criterion edition of McCabe and Mrs. Miller between two film historians, Carrie Beauchamp and Rick Jewell. And Rick Jewell took a bit of issue with the anti-Western label. He seemed to think that, really for the most part, this, movie, to him hit the beats, but it was just maybe a little bit in the presentation. So maybe we really should dive through this, as your first viewing and decide, is this really, in your opinion, an anti-Western?
Or just a Western,
or just a revisionist Western, because I think that's that for that time it's definitely the very least that. But is it an anti-Western?
Okay, I like that question a lot. I'm intrigued by that question a lot. So let's stick with that. We kind of already put some of those differences out there, thinking about the setting. Yeah. The wet, the mud, the snow, but there are some other aspects because, I think when you think of a lawman, you have this guy who comes to town, and that's how this movie starts, right?
Yep.
Warren Beatty's coming to town.
The stranger comes to town.
Right. But he's not a lawman.
No.
You can, really quickly find out he's not a lawman that's coming to town. He's just a guy who's want to start his life over in this town. His background is cloudy.
It's very mysterious. And I think that is an interesting element of McCabe as a character, because it is something that kind of unfolds throughout the entirety of the movie, even kind of subversively. It's not the big mystery, like, is he truly Pudgy McCabe?
You don't really even ever find out,
right?
Sure.
Right, and but that's kind of the crux of that initial meeting. He comes to this town, Presbyterian Church, and then kind of sets up shop at this bar that Sheehan runs, and the Sheehan kind of is the one who puts this together that he's Pudgy McCabe and kind of builds this myth.
Right.
It sets lights the fuse, if you will,
Sure.
on this myth of McCabe being Pudgy McCabe, and that's something that kind of rides with him for the rest of the film.
Yeah, and it's almost like a de-evolution of a character in some ways because of Sheehan's influence. You almost kind of build him up, and maybe like your expectations as a viewer of westerns, you're like, okay, this is a gunslinger, an old gunslinger gone into retirement,
right?
Or this is how I felt, that he's a retired gunslinger, and he's made his money. He's going to go retire in the Northwest, and his past is going to come back and haunt him. I'm like, all right, that's my initial take of what's going to happen.
And it makes total sense that you would think that. I mean, again, that is very much a Western kind of idea.
Prototype,
so I mean, it would make sense.
And then the movie, I think, does subconscious, not through exposition or something, but they kind of de-evolve him, or like, oh, he's not quite as cool as I thought he'd be, or he's not as quite put together, or he stumbles through things, he gets scared at times.
Definitely, that opening scene where he kind of puts that card game together real
great.
fast, and he makes that deal real quick with Sheehan about the bottles and all of that.
He can handle his own.
Right, and you're right. It kind of sets up this idea of like who you think McCabe is.
A very confident,
very savvy businessman.
Yeah.
And then when they kind of saddle him with that Pudgy McCabe myth, he's got a big rep.
Right.
That's what Sheehan says.
He's got a big rep.
He's got a big rep. Yep. I know who he is. But, and he never really confirms or refutes it per se.
Right.
He just kind of goes along with it. And, to his advantage, clearly, because that's what allows him to kind of take control of Presbyterian Church and kind of build the empire, quote unquote, that he does through the course of this movie. But you're right. It's interesting because typically that character would maintain that level of cool throughout,
or build upon it,
or build upon
that's the
it.
baseline.
But you're right. Like through the movie, he kind of you see these cracks.
He never really is ever as cool as he is in that first scene.
Right, exactly.
He might be more well-rounded in some areas, but he's never as cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was a very interesting take, and I thought Warren Beatty did an amazing job at this.
Yeah,
he can stumble his way through a scene. I mean that like the McCabe, the character, not Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty's great.
Yeah,
but because he can get McCabe to kind of stumble his way through these scenes, and like I said earlier, like his confidence can waver throughout, and his quick-wittedness can stumble and fall, and then he can rebound. He just does a really good job of kind of just, I don't know, just humanizing this guy. He's not this mythical Western guy. He's just ends up just kind of feeling like he's just some guy trying to survive.
He's kind of a schmuck.
He is. He's just an average idiot.
Right. Yeah, and so he kind of puts these things together. But you're right. Like it's even the deal making process of getting the brothel set up, and then bringing in the prostitutes and stuff like that. What ultimately leads to Mrs. Miller's entrance into the movie.
Did the one prostitute kill that guy?
They never say, but I mean, there's no reason to think not.
It's got to be bad for business. So it looks like she stabbed him right in the heart.
Right, but what did he do? You got to ask, what did he do?
We don't know.
There's that. But it's funny.
I think she killed a guy.
I saw that. But I think, I say this about, there's some bands that I like, being a big music fan and stuff, and it's one of the things that makes them so intriguing is that it sounds like at any moment the wheels are getting ready to fall off, and they're just going to fall apart, and they don't. And I think that it just shows how good they are to take it to that point. And I think you're right. Warren Beatty as McCabe has that same quality, where it seems like the wheels can fall off at any minute.
Yeah.
Because he's just kind of stumbling his way through this, and then he does it.
Right. Yeah.
And it builds such a compelling character off that.
Yeah. I mean, just to piggyback that, the scene where he meets the bear hunter.
Yeah. Butler. Yeah.
That is such a great scene.
Oh my God, I know.
I mean, that scene was really cool. And Warren Beatty wears bear gear, right? Is that like the symbolism there when he said, "I'm bear hunting"?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean,
he wears this big old
coat.
Yeah. but that scene was just so great because Warren Beatty's there to like basically like cower. I mean,
try to
McCabe,
make a deal, I
yeah,
guess.
he's
At
like
that
trying
point.
to save his life at some
Yeah.
point, and so, compared to what we're expecting from our Western protagonist,
Yeah.
definitely like not a hero in this scene. He's definitely like trying to save his own skin and avoid danger, and it's like in Western regards, wimpy.
Yeah.
Where he's just like because he's taking way less money than he wanted originally, so he's
Sure.
like he's basically caving in on everything that he stood for earlier.
Well, I don't know if I should ask this now because I feel like this is a later part of the
know.
conversation. But like, is it less than what he wanted, or did he even?
Well,
know?
we don't know.
Do you think he even knew what he was doing? Because again, it kind of I guess does fit into this category. Does he ever really know what he's doing?
Yeah, and that's a really good question because one thing like this, and I guess a couple things to talk about in regards to this because the other thing I think about is that initial deal, that initial time he met the mining company's representatives,
Harrison, it was Sears and Hollander.
Sears and Hollander. He's really drunk.
Yeah.
He's bombastic and makes this puts out a huge number. I think like $14,000 or $15,000.
Yeah.
But like when their counter came like within hours, it's like let him sleep it off, bro. He wanted,
Right.
like they came right to the brothel, like maybe even less than an hour.
Sure.
They might have crossed the street with him.
Yeah.
And so it's like they didn't really give him time to like haggle. I mean, I'm
Right.
thinking of like Life of Brian. You gotta haggle.
Yeah.
They never
Haggle
countered.
properly.
Yeah, I mean they barely countered his
Yeah.
his 14, 15. So it's like I kind of don't know if he invited them to breakfast and they no showed. So like
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever got to really settle in on what his number would be. So maybe he didn't really take too much less or was going to take too much less in that one really great scene where he met Butler. But it seemed like he was basically going to take their first offer essentially. Like,
sure. Well, he cowered himself
Yeah,
down to that.
yeah.
Yeah, because he knew what was coming. Otherwise, I think at that point.
he tucks tail, and then even at the end of that, the guy's like, "Well, no, I don't make deals."
Right.
That was a great line.
No, it was. It was so good. Well, and one thing about Butler, and I don't know if this threw you off like it did me, but the fact that he was British,
Yeah,
like
it
really
did.
kind of like, whoa,
Really did.
what? What's happening here?
We don't let Brits in
Whoa,
our
whoa,
westerns.
kung fu. Like so again,
Yeah.
that kind of like subversion
Yeah.
of a western
Yeah.
idea. Like you wouldn't really think of a Brit being this guy,
Yeah.
this character. You'd almost see McCabe being the Brit
Sure.
and not Butler. So I
Yeah.
think that's interesting. But so let's put a pin on it because there
Yeah.
is some elements of that. Like I want to come
Me
back
too, me
to
too.
with the guys. But before we get there, we have to talk about what I think is like the powerhouse of this movie in a lot of ways, and that is Julie Christie as Constance Miller.
Sure.
I think once she shows up, obviously it's good before it, but I think once she shows up, it is fire.
Yeah.
For the rest of this movie, I think it's so interesting because I've heard different people talk about this with Altman about how one he was an actor's director. He loved actors. He loved working with actors, which is not always the case with directors, and they loved working with him. And another thing, especially in this era, he wrote so many great female characters, and Julie Christie, I think, is near the top of that mountain.
Yeah.
And especially for a Western where women are so often furniture.
Sure.
And she is not that in any way, shape, or form.
No, she isn't. I mean, she really is what makes the engine cook in this movie.
Yeah, 100%.
I loved her intro scene where she basically is haggling with McCabe.
Right.
And I love how they cut the scene off where you don't know if he's going to say yes or no.
Yeah.
We don't get to see his response.
If he even has a choice.
Yeah, but as the audience member, you just assume he had to make this deal, right? Like she obviously just knows way too much about what she's talking about here.
Well, and they did a great setup before this because before this happens, Sheehan tries to partner up with him.
Right.
And he rebuffs him. He's like, I don't like partners. I don't work with partners, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of puts that into the ether, that this is how he is. So when Mrs. Miller shows up and basically like strong arms him, I think it's such a great juxtaposition to the Sheehan scene because Sheehan couldn't do that.
No.
But Constance Miller sure as hell
can.
could.
Yeah, pretty easily.
Pretty easily.
And she got him to buy her dinner doing it.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, she knows how to make a deal.
Yeah. She does. I mean, and there's, they prove throughout the movie she's smarter than him, like
100%.
at least quick-wittedness.
Yeah.
She's more, she's, not just numbers, but she's a better businesswoman in that she's a better boss. Like she cares more about the employees.
Mm-hmm.
She's willing to get her hands dirty, like,
Yep.
and maybe literally.
Yeah.
For $5.
Well, yeah. $5. That's an awful lot of money.
Yep.
That one guy paid it though.
Many did.
But I think going to her ability to handle McCabe, I think the line that I think really just really just stuck the knife in it, and it comes in that early scene in that intro where she's like, "You're not as fancy as you make out." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like where she sees through it.
Right away.
Whereas like,
Yeah.
Sheehan and everybody else in that town, built that myth out of nothing right away.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're this big guy, you big rep, you got a big rep.
Right.
And then, Constance Miller comes in and like, you're nobody.
Yeah.
And she knew it.
Butler saw through it right away too.
Butler
in that
did see
scene.
through it.
So it's
That's
kind of
fair.
interesting though, with like the big bad, like McCabe's foil in this movie saw right through him, and that's what Mrs. Miller did too.
Yeah.
In a way, because she is a partner, but she is a foil in some ways too.
Yeah. But it is interesting, you bring up that Butler scene, and since we're kind of like homogenizing this part of the conversation, it's so Sheehan is the one who put that in Butler's mind. You got that, right?
Yes,
like, so it was like
he doesn't actually know.
He doesn't know anything. Like, he didn't know that guy. Like, he was
supposedly
best friend,
McCabe killed.
best friend's best friend.
No, he was testing him.
He was testing him completely,
which he failed.
But he he knew, even kind of testing that lie, that it was a lie. And even if he didn't know it going in. So I think that you're right in that instance. It is kind of that savviness, maybe of the outside world, outside of Presbyterian Church, but still, McCabe as a person is.
Yeah, but it's interesting. The two people that saw through him were Mrs. Miller and
Mrs. Miller and Butler,
Butler, because it's an interesting way that they play this like love story. I think
I do want to talk about that for sure.
So, because I think that's where she kind of shines through a little bit too, because it kind of starts off as like. And they let you fill in some gaps.
Definitely.
They let you fill in some gaps. And they do a great job of showing time in this movie, because you can see time change through either the weather and through the construction of the town.
Right.
Which I think is really interesting.
It is. But it is funny because they talk about it in that conversation that I mentioned earlier, that you really don't know how long has passed, though. They do.
You just know time
has passed, but you don't know how long.
Right.
McCabe has been there, but you do know, like, however long it's been, he has ingrained himself in this town and really kind of, made his way to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, and I'm guessing as they made this movie, they literally built half the town or half of McCabe's ownings, film scenes, and then like, all right, well, let's finish building a little bit more and like put up some walls here and finish the flooring, and then film some more scenes, and they just had to keep building it out because that's how the movie
basically
plays out.
It was, yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting to kind of see, like, you can, like I was saying before, you can fill in the gaps of their love story a little bit, because imagine he just was paying the $5 for her time a couple times, and then they kind of they slowly kind of, you can see, kind of get feelings for each other, and it's Mrs. Miller definitely like plays her heart closer to the vest, or however you would say that, than he's heart able to, or heart less on her sleeve,
right?
Maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But it's funny because like early on, once the business really gets going, he's got no customers, so his side of the business apparently is failing,
right?
But her brothel is like maxed out,
right? Well, right, yeah, like that. It's such a great scene, like when he comes in, or like when he's trying to do the books, and she comes in, and he's mad about money, and she's like trying to get him to understand, and then reveals the profits that she's made and all of that, and he's just like, oh, okay,
this is working just fine. Basically, the bar is just a staging area for guys to wait maybe before they go to her brothel.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's kind of the point, and I think that is kind of.
Well, it wasn't his original plan,
right? But he also just doesn't understand the business,
right?
You know what I mean? And I think that's part of it. Is he thought he was going to make so much money on liquor, but really what he was going to make money on was ladies. And it's just like he needed to get to that point.
Only men.
Right, exactly. But you're talking about the love side of it. You mentioned that first guy that comes in for $5, and it's like finds out Mrs. Miller's $5, where everybody else is like $2 or whatever.
Right.
And you can also see that McCabe in that scene was not thrilled.
No.
That she was taking customers at all.
Right. It seemed like that was the first time he'd realized that was
a
thing.
That like, oh, she was going to be taking customers too. Like, she's just not. It's not just a management situation. So, yeah, in that moment, you can tell that relationship, at least on his side, is forming.
Yeah.
Feelings are forming.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think you really get a sense of that being reciprocated until maybe, I guess maybe I started thinking about it when when McCabe informed her of the original deal that
Right.
Sears
Yeah.
and Harding or whatever proposed.
Hollander. Yep.
Proposed, and he was like, she's like, she understands what not accepting the deal means.
Right.
That
Right.
you didn't have a choice. You have to accept this deal.
Right.
And you could kind of see that. At first, you're not sure. I wasn't sure if it's just she wants, she doesn't want her business partner dead because she will be out of business as well, or if it was because she didn't want him to die. And I feel like slowly you learn, like, no, I think she just doesn't want him to die.
Right.
Because I do feel like some of those feelings are being reciprocated in her own way.
Sure. Yeah. No, I can agree with that, and I think, it's so interesting to me how the similarities between, so there's obviously a lot of differences between McCabe and Mrs. Miller, but I do think there's some similarities as well, where they both have a hard time dealing with reality. They just deal with it in two different ways.
Yeah.
So like McCabe is constantly lying to himself, like, oh, I know what I'm doing, I can do this or I can do that, or whatever, delusions of grandeur. Whereas Mrs. Miller's an opium addict.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So she kind of escapes reality in that way.
Right.
So, I think, and that scene I thought was a great, I guess, coming together of that, because obviously she's trying to do her opium or whatever,
Yeah.
When he interrupts her and then comes in and, kind of gives his spiel. So, and reality smacks her in the face at that point, because she realizes the danger that he is in, and maybe they're all in.
Sure,
because you know how far they're going to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's such a smart way to handle these two characters.
Yeah, and even speaking of that, I'm even at the end of the movie, which I don't want to talk about just yet, but it's like, if they ever were able to kill McCabe, does she own half the bit? Like, would they have to kill her next, or they just bargain with her, or can they just win?
That's
like,
true. I mean,
not
they
sure
probably
how
don't
those
even realize
contracts
it, to be honest, because it's, again, the idea of him partnering with a woman in this business in that time I think would be unheard of.
Right.
So in their mind, it's probably, not even a thought.
my favorite line, I think, in regards to McCabe and Mrs. Miller as a couple, was right before he was going to go. I can't remember exactly, but he's going to try and get another deal done, and she's telling him not to go or not to try. I don't know if this is when he leaves
when he's trying to
town,
get her to go, when she's trying to get him to go
or
elsewhere.
she wants to go with him.
Right, yeah, go somewhere else and look at opening another place elsewhere. Yeah.
And then he was like, if a man is foolish enough to go into business with a woman, I guess she won't think very much of him.
Right.
And he just said it kind of with such heartbreak, where he's like, he's basically doing this to impress you now or something at this point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he can't look bad in front of you. He can't reveal how bad he is at business or what a big hole he's dug for himself here. He's got to get himself out of this.
Yeah. Well, again, big rep.
Yeah,
that's kind of the thing. He, that I think so much built off of that, which is funny because, again, it kind of goes back to that anti-Western thing where it's, you've got where normally that big character would, you build upon that myth as through the movie, whereas this one you deconstruct that.
Yes. Yes.
And, I think, by that point in the movie, I mean, obviously you're kind of barreling towards the epic conclusion, quote unquote. And, you kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit there.
Yeah, before we get to the epic conclusion and stuff, there's a couple other things I did want to talk about. Capitalism plays a big part in this movie.
Yeah, no, I can completely agree. I think there's a lot of workers' rights issues, kind of throughout this movie, and definitely this idea of capital and capitalism and
or
what
the
that
pitfalls
leads
of
to,
it,
right? And the pitfalls of it, exactly. So on the workers' rights side of it, I think they do a great job with the ladies of the brothel, and kind of and Julie Christie coming in and kind of not just treating them as meat, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that's kind of a big part of that as well.
I think she has actually a great monologue for the time period describing the benefits of prostitution.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Right, with Ida, which we
with
should Shelley Duvall, which we'll talk about that. But
but we'll talk about that. because it's great. But like to the point where she's like she does not see like these women are not just there to just be like pillaged upon. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's not how she
It's
views
it's
it.
a
That's
form
why
of
she's
control. Sex work is work,
Right.
and she knew it.
Yeah, but you know what? Also, I think early in the movie, what they're doing too, in regards to capitalism, is showing the effects of small business.
Right.
How it can have on this town, because I do feel like the town kind of slowly changes with
Right.
McCabe's business there. Like the town's maturing. That
Mhm.
there's more. Obviously there's more things for the inhabitants to do and
Right.
be prosperous and spend their own money on, and it help their own economy.
Mhm.
And then of course quickly big business has to come in and try to stomp
Right.
on that out. Stomp that out.
Absolutely, and I think that's such a big part of it. They even go so far as to saying, "I'm with Clement." I see. I can't remember if he's like the sheriff. I think he's the sheriff.
Is there a sheriff? Because I was asking. I have a note in here like, where is the law in this town?
He's a lawyer. I'm sorry, Clement Samuels was a lawyer.
Yeah.
And that's who he goes to see. And so no, I don't know about the sheriff. So that's
Yeah.
good. That's a good question. But yeah, so with Clement Samuels, he even says the line, "I'm talking about busting up these trusts and monopolies."
Yeah.
So even then, that's such a huge issue for us now, and such a big topic of discussion. And they were, they're talking about this. I mean, granted, it was the '70s,
Yeah.
putting words in the mouth of somebody in,
Sure.
in the West. But you know what I mean?
Well, these things definitely. It's not new.
It's not new, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's my point. Is
Yeah.
it's not new.
But even him as a lawyer though, like he was not honest, like there to actually help McCabe. It was for his self-interest too.
Right.
Which is
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. He just wanted the newspaper articles.
He
didn't
wanted
want
to be a
help.
politician. Yeah.
So and that's another. That's
Another
another
level,
thing.
another
level,
layer.
yes.
Exactly, another layer.
But yeah, because the funny thing is, when they offer McCabe this deal, which they think is more than fair, they're like, basically, give us everything you own,
Right.
and we're going to pay you fairly for it, and we don't get why you won't accept this deal. It's like, because it's everything he owns, like you're trying to buy his life, and you just because when these big corporations are just all about, and they weren't a big corporation in the 1700s or late 1800s, whatever this is, but it's like it's like. He can't just give you everything you own and do what for the rest of his life?
1902.
1902. Yeah, I knew this was later than a lot of westerns, but
Yeah.
and do what with the rest? Like, why can't you just accept? Maybe he wants to do this as his retirement job and die doing this. Like, why he doesn't have to sell to you?
Yeah, it was basically either sell or die. I mean,
Yeah.
that really was the point. And it was like, so you come in and you offer him a price, and he maybe what if he countered 8 or 9 or whatever, and like they didn't want to pay it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Basically, at that point, it was like they could have made the point of take this 62.50 or whatever, and that'll be it. You know
Right.
what I mean? That's it. Like or die.
Right.
And there is no haggling.
And you know darn well they could have paid him the $15,000 and been just fine.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But that's the thing. It's like
Yeah.
there wasn't. And this kind of goes back to that like kind of anti-capital kind of thing where there was no haggling.
No.
McCabe's kind of got this idea that he's like this master deal maker, this
Right.
master negotiator, and he knows what he's doing, but there really is no haggle.
No.
Like the haggle, I guess, is over pennies or your life.
Maybe. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like pennies or your life, because they're not gonna, they don't have to go to 11 or 15 because they're just gonna kill you anyway. So it's
Right.
like, why are they giving you the 62.50? They're just gonna kill you anyway. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's like, so it's such an interesting angle. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And with a guy like McCabe who thinks he's such a smooth talker, master mover. I mean, he was a rat in a trap, and he didn't even realize it.
Yeah, and as audience member, we didn't realize until like you see that one scene where he's like the two partners,
Sears and Hollander.
Sears and Hollander, but they were just representatives.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
Where their representatives were like talking to each other. He's like, "Well, let's go up to 7." He's like, "No, we offered. We're done with this. I'm
Right.
done." And I was like, as an audience member, you're like, "Oh shoot, McCabe can't get out of this now. Like,
Right.
this is his trap." Like
Yeah,
you
which
said.
is what Mrs. Miller warned him about, because
Right.
she knew. She knew
was
that was
right.
what was going to happen. The Harrison Shaughnessy, that's the name of the company. Harrison Shaughnessy Mining Company.
Yeah.
They don't play.
Yeah.
They don't get they don't not get what they want.
But
and I think that's
yeah.
again that kind of talking about modern capital. That's very much
Oh yeah, it is. I
how
mean,
it is.
the the theory now is it's better to buy out your competition than compete.
Right.
Right. So if you don't have, it's cheaper to buy out your competition than compete.
Then it
that's-
was cheaper to kill them.
Yeah. So that was they saved a lot of money doing that for
Right.
sure. I think also something that's pretty unique about the movie, we've touched on it, is the look. And I don't just
Yeah.
mean the setting necessarily either, but like it's a grainy movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Um,
sepia toned foot. It's very sepia drenched. That's
Okay.
why I wrote that down. But that's Vilmo, or I always butcher his name, Vilmos Sigmund.
Okay.
He's a great cinematographer, and I know you've seen multiple of his movies, but like his style in this I think it fit the
Yeah.
muckiness
Right.
of the Pacific Northwest. And I think he was really kind of able to play with things like the rain and the snow
Yeah.
and the ice and things like that, and really kind of, it was very textural. I actually wrote that down. Like, I think this movie is so textural in nature,
Mhm.
where not, it's like, it feels like you could reach out and like touch the
Yeah.
wood. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just so vivid.
Or step right through it because it looks rotten, or something.
Or that,
At
sure.
Sheehan's.
Sure, sure.
But like I said, I mean, I think when you watch into this movie, you're like, you put a blanket on because you do feel cold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I also I love the way the town was set up. A lot of times in a classic Western, I think we can all kind of picture like what the downtown of a classic Western city looks like. It's just there's a big open space for a shootout.
Yeah.
The buildings are, they all have this classic, like one's blue, one's pink, then there's the bright white brothel with you just have this classic of like Tombstone in your brain or whatever
Right.
it is.
Yeah, for sure. Gunfight at the OK Corral.
Yeah. But this city does not look anything like, this town looks nothing like that. It's built like
No.
on the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
It looks like the roads are just, like we said, they're just muddy. It's like it's hard to traverse.
Yeah.
It's cramped. It feels
Yep.
cramped. Like the housing feels like a little too small.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just love the differences that it exposes you to here.
I completely agree, and again, it kind of goes back into that, either revisionist Western, anti-Western
Yeah.
kind of vibe, and I'm sure that's, what Altman had in mind,
Yeah.
when he wanted to make this movie. And that conversation I mentioned earlier, they were talking about one of the things that drew him to the source material, the book, the novel that this is based
McCabe.
on, is that the idea of shooting a Western in the rain.
Yeah.
Because I guess the rain is a big
Sure.
part of the book.
Oh.
So that was something that drew Altman to wanting to make this movie, was the idea of shooting a Western in the rain, because that's not really something you ever see
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
you
Like I
know?
said, to me, I'm like, the winter just struck me as just a setting I'm not used to seeing. Like I said, maybe maybe there are scenes where they're going up through mountains and stuff, but it just felt different in this one. The use of snow and stuff.
Yeah, and the color palette that they chose to shoot with, I just
Yeah.
thought was really wonderful. On the flip of the visual, let's talk a little bit about the sound, because Leonard Cohen has so many songs in this movie. I mean, the whole soundtrack is built around Leonard Cohen songs, and I think they're used so well.
Yeah. It's definitely, to me, I'm like Shazamming these. I'm like, I want to hear this again.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie starts off with a pretty long song, I guess.
right.
Of
Yeah,
his, and it's kind of
over the credits.
yeah. And it kind of sets this mood
Mm-hmm.
that is like very unique to this song. Like it's definitely a type of music where like where you are like when you're listening to it, kind of thing. And I almost feel like they use it throughout the movie, where like if things are getting a little wild, like sometimes they'll come back in with his music and it almost like settle you back down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's him, and it's a lot of him and his guitar
That's it.
songs.
That's
you know
it.
what I mean? And I think it's so effective with obviously his lyricism is so great, and the timbre of his voice.
Were these songs made just for this movie? Were they
I
pre-existing?
don't think so. I think
Yeah.
they were pre-existing.
Okay.
I'm not 100%
Because they
on
fit.
that.
They seem to fit like perfectly in areas.
Yeah, and who knows? Some may have been, and some may not
Yeah.
have been. I'm not 100% on that. But yeah, I think overall, as far as when you're choosing what music, if you think of like Sergio Leone, like using Morricone
Sure,
or something like
sure.
that. You know what I mean? It's just the
Yeah.
kind of grandiose kind of Western music, and even going back to the studio system here in the U.S., I think there's a similar kind of thing. Whereas driving, dun, 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 dun,
Right,
that
right.
kind of stuff. Whereas McCabe and Mrs. Miller, the music is all very somber.
Yeah.
Like there's never like a a loud note.
No, and it's lyrical based, which is very
Right,
different.
right.
Like it's not just a very catchy beat or whatever.
Right, which again kind of goes back to that anti-Western
Sure.
possibility.
Yeah, I could fall in that. Now, so I guess to me, maybe if we kind of hone in a little bit on where the movie does start to maybe fall on the tracks of coming back into the Western,
Sure.
or make you feel a little bit more familiar, like you know where you're at. I think there's that great scene of that young buckaroo who goes through all the horrors,
Right.
at the brothel. And I
Yep.
hope that's
Keith Carradine.
in one of his early movies, I
Yep.
guess, right?
Mhm.
But Keith Carradine leaves McCabe's brothel, and he's going to Sheehan's for, like, I don't know, one last drink or something before he goes or whatever.
Right.
And then one of Butler's dudes,
Yeah.
who looks like just some nice young kid with blonde hair,
Yeah.
like nothing, no big threat. And Butler's crew's just been sitting around for days or weeks, it seems like, so it's like no big deal.
Yeah.
And then he won't let him cross the bridge,
Yeah.
and a little kind of one-sided shootout takes place.
Yeah, I think that's such an intriguing scene for a side character. You
Yeah.
know, and I do want to talk a little bit about the side character, so this is a great segue for that. I think this scene is so almost anti-masculine. So, like, when you have these, like, Western scenes where you have a shootout and all of that, like, it feels very hyper-masculine. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you're fighting for your life,
it's
and
life or
it's
death.
manhood, and blah.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got these two guys, you've got one that's literally called the cowboy, who doesn't necessarily act like your typical cowboy archetype from
Sure.
a Western. And then like you said, you've got this, like, fresh-faced kid
Yeah.
who had already kind of been humiliated a little bit in, like, the previous lead up to this, where he was trying to shoot that jug on
Yeah.
the frozen water, and he kept missing. He goes, oh, the idea is to make it float,
Right.
so you can tell in that moment that he's trying to prove himself to the other guy, Breed.
Yeah.
So it's Breed and Kid. Those are the two other guys. And you can tell that, he's trying to, obviously save face and embarrassment. So, when Cowboy shows up, you're like, okay, is that this? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And the fact that he tricks him.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
foul
It's
play.
right. It's not even, like, really a quick draw shootout.
No.
It's a con. Where he tricks him to kind of start taking his gun out, like, oh, what kind of, let
Show
me see
me
that,
it.
show me that gun, or whatever, and then he shoots him pretty much, just in cold blood. I think it's such again, that anti-West. It does feel like, that a little bit of an
parts-
anti-Western
yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of deconstructing what you would think of as a normal, like, quick draw scene in a average Western.
Yeah. And really kind of, I don't know. It was a gut punch for a character you don't really care about because he's not really in the movies. In the movie's probably 2.5 minutes. But, like, it's just so unfair. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this guy just was having the time of his life at the brothel for about a week. He ran through the whole place.
Yeah.
And then his life's over, unexpectedly, and, like, 3 minutes later.
Yeah.
And
he goes in that
real
cold
life.
water. I mean, that must
Very
have been freezing cold water.
And I even, speaking of subverting, like, his intro scene was great. Like, they're at the funeral,
Mhm.
and he just rides up in the, shadowed on a horse. And then McCabe is going to go walk over to him, thinking that this is, like, one of the assassins coming to get him, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what Mrs. Miller thinks. And, McCabe's like, nothing to worry about. I'm fine. And
Yeah.
he's going to go walk over and talk to him. And, Mrs. Miller, I guess, she can't handle the stress and runs away, probably to get some opium or something.
Right.
And it ends up being just a nice guy. But it's
Right.
like, again, like, you think, okay, this is all right, here we go. We're getting back on the Western track. Like, this is going to be a little shootout. McCabe's going to have to do something here. And it's like, nope, just a nice young boy.
Right. Like, I heard you had the best whorehouse in the area. And I haven't been with a woman in years. So I was like, or whatever.
Here's how you know he's such a nice guy. Apparently, they make fun of the size of his unit, and he's cool with it.
Right.
He doesn't really care.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But okay, since you brought up Keith Carradine, cowboy side characters, and we had mentioned Ida earlier, Shelley Duvall.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, I think another great thing about this movie is I do feel like the side characters, which, a lot of times can fade into the background, and I'm not saying that they're all, completely, fleshed out by any means, but I think none of them feel wasted. in
Right.
that way. You know what I mean? So you got Bart and Ida. So I think their story is so interesting. So when going back way back in the Wayback Machine to when Miss Miller arrives for the first time, Ida is with her,
Yeah,
and
by
because
happenstance, I
Bart,
guess.
yeah, right, by happenstance, because Bart Coyle has a mail order bride, and
And it's her. It's Ida.
and it's Ida, which is mail order bride's the thing,
Yeah.
and so he rushes up to her like, oh,
You're mine.
you're
Come here,
mine,
get
come
off.
on, just hop down, so, and it's she, I don't know if she really has a line in that scene, if I
No, I
remember
don't think she
correctly.
does
He
it.
just kind
She
of ushers
doesn't.
her off, but then like later she comes back around and he they're guys that are kind of like hitting on her, and he gets into a fight and gets his head caved
Yeah.
in.
Hits on her, ask her if she's a prostitute, which is
Right.
kind of hitting. They meant it I think, in a genuinely nice way.
In the nicest way possible.
They meant to say you're
If
pretty.
I gave you some money, would you go to a bedroom with
Yeah.
me?
Which I think she's like the only other woman in the town. So it's like
Right,
it's
that's
almost
not working
yeah.
at the brothel.
You're right. So it's almost like not an
Yes.
unfair question. But yeah, Bart just trips and dies.
Yeah,
And so now Ida has nothing to do. So that's where kind of that scene we brought up earlier. She
Right.
starts working at the brothel, and then that's where Mrs. Miller gives her that great conversation about like you're a mail order bride.
Right.
Having sex with your husband.
like
You know,
it was her. She
is-
said it was her duty.
It was
so
a
that's
duty,
how she
just
could
like
do
it is at
yeah.
just like this. What she's going to be doing now. I
Right, you're
guess.
paying for your room and board, and you're paying for it.
Yeah.
And like here, you're more in control. So I
Right.
mean, and it's so it is a great scene, and I love Shelley Duvall. She's not in this nearly as much, but she did go on to have a very, very great career
Oh, for
working
sure.
with Altman, like multiple movies. I mean, Three Women is my personal favorite. Three Women is incredible.
Popeye is mine.
She was also Popeye, which is great. So underrated in Popeye Nashville. She's also in, but you can go on and on. But yeah, I love the fact that Shelley Duvall's in this movie even just a little bit. And then like we mentioned Sheehan earlier, Renee. I'm gonna do it.
Oh, gosh,
Renee
you're brave.
Auberginois.
Okay.
Auberginois.
Got you.
And another guy who worked with Altman multiple times, including MASH, where he was the original Father Mulcahy.
Wow. And we saw him in Certain
And
Women.
we saw him in Certain Women, exactly. So he another recall for Car Ray Rob.
Yes.
But I love the way they fill this town out, make it a living, breathing thing, and it just adds to the tapestry of the film.
Yeah, it really does. They get a lot of bang for their buck from the supporting characters.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the finale?
Yeah, since we talked about this, let's jump into the finale, because the Reverend, I think, plays a bit of a part in this finale sequence, and I think he's kind of a guy who's always in the background.
Right. He's in scenes. He doesn't really speak much.
Right, exactly. So he obviously plays a part in this finale, which we'll get to, but it is an interesting, I'll use the word again, kind of deconstruction, if you will, of a Western finale, shootout, whatever, even though it is technically one.
Yeah, to me, like I wrote down, like this feels like High Noon. I will say, because it's like
Sure.
him like hiding through a town,
Sure.
going after three guys,
I mean, that's fair.
trying to get his, trying to get them before he gets caught. Like it felt very High Noonish to me in that
Sure.
way.
And that's fair. I think it's a bit slower than that, and maybe it's just partly because of so there's two things going on at once,
Right.
which I think is super interesting. And
well,
this
it's a way smarter way to use the town than High Noon. Well, totally different.
Sure,
story,
right.
but yeah.
So obviously, due to this shootout and the way that it starts, bringing up the Reverend, so McCabe goes tries to hide in the church or whatever, and the Reverend kicks him out, takes his shotgun. And
Well, first of all, I think there's some symbolism there too, because
Right.
this whole town's been built up, and I think when McCabe runs into this church, like he expects that the church is done,
right,
but it's basically just a junkyard
sure
of all this construction, and it's almost like they don't have room at this town for a church yet. This is a brothel-run town,
right.
There's no
which
room
is why
for,
the Reverend's so pissed.
Yeah, there's no room for church in this town.
Yeah,
which is funny.
Yeah, but so he kicks him out, But what that ultimately leads to is when they come up to the church trying to find him, they see the Reverend with a shotgun, thinking it's McCabe or whatever, or maybe not, and shoots him.
Yeah.
And he drops the lantern, setting the whole place on fire.
The church, yeah.
Which causes the town to have to put out the fire, all the while McCabe is trying to, escape from
Right.
these three guys that are trying to kill him.
Yeah, it's a great way to empty the town because it is a unifying thing too.
Right.
And I was very intrigued on how they were going to put this fire out. Like this little fire truck, 1902
Yeah,
fire
like the
truck was
steam.
very interesting.
Yeah, that was super
Um,
interesting.
And it's a rallying kind of for the town too,
Yeah.
in a way. But yeah, so you kind of go through the scene where like, and the Butler has put in our mind the question in our mind, as a viewer is, can McCabe even kill? Has he ever killed before? Like, so now we
Right.
know this. We heard the story about him killing Billy Roundtree or whatever the guy's name was, and then Butler's telling us he's never killed anybody. It's like, all right, well now you're either going to kill the first 3 people you've ever killed,
Right.
or you're going to show us that you're a heck of a gunfighter. And maybe this will be what justifies the story in our own mind, like finally.
Right.
And he kind of stumbles his way.
Yeah, as he does.
As he does.
The
as he
wheels
always
coming
does.
off, man. The wheels are about to
Yeah.
come off.
He gets Billy, like he's just hiding in a corner and shoots Billy, or not Billy. I'm saying Billy the Kid, but Kid.
Yeah.
Just Kid. He shoots Kid, and then Kid comes around and gets him back. So he
Right.
kind of kills the Kid, but he gets shot in the stomach.
Right.
And it does not look probably like the best place to get shot back in 1902.
No, especially because that bleeds for a while. It's a slow way to die.
Yeah.
Shot in the gut.
Yeah.
Slow way to die.
And then so it's like it's not just that he's hiding in the town, like that's the very again that was very high noonish, but like the snow, like this blizzard coming through.
Yeah.
Visually is like such a great added aspect, I think, to this fight, because it's like you're literally fighting the elements too, because you can't run. He can't
Right.
run away because you're in like knee-high snow. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like this is another layer of being trapped
Yeah.
that I found to be very intriguing and
Yeah.
tense.
Well, yeah, and even though it is a slow, more of a chase, cat and mouse kind
Yeah.
of scene in that way, you're right. Like, I think that does add a certain element to it. And even when, Butler finally catches up to him and he shoots him, and they're, it's funny because there's like this natural big puff of smoke,
Right.
but it's the snow. You know what
Right.
I mean? Right.
Right.
All around him as McCabe falls down before Butler comes up and ultimately gets some shelf shot with a Derringer. So maybe he was Pudgy McCabe. You
Yep.
never know. You
Yep.
don't know. But so, I think, I don't know. Like they never say. I'm not never really seen anything claiming one way or the other. But I do think it's an interesting Easter egg as far as the
I think he
viewer
was,
goes
but I think
to-
it was accidental.
Sure,
It was just
right.
it wasn't anything cool.
Right, big rep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it kind of adds to that, and then obviously when he dies in the snow,
Yeah,
very
just-
Jack Torrance in The Shining.
Yeah, literally just being buried.
Yeah, in the snow. I think it's interesting because I think this brings up a great juxtaposition and I think a social commentary. So, like you said, 2 things are happening at once. The
Yeah.
church is on fire, and McCabe is being chased down, and it's community versus capital
Right.
in this idea. We kind of talked about that earlier, and the community came together
Right.
and was able to put out that fire.
Right.
The individual, they all died. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it's like a never-ending. So it's community versus capital,
Yeah.
and community won
Right.
in that regard because the capital died. They all died.
Yep.
But the community won out, which I think I think Altman did that very intentionally.
Yeah, and then I think and then the closing scene is like because you're kind of wondering through all this, like where's Mrs. Miller?
Right.
And again, I was
'Cause she
thinking
disappears.
high noon, like she's gonna get caught because I'm like, you haven't had their scene yet where they've confessed for each other,
Right.
that they actually love each other or whatever.
Yeah.
She's never like gave him really any really strong reciprocation of feeling.
Right.
So what that's going to happen while she's like held like with a gun to her head by Butler or whatever. Nope. She's doing what she does.
She's
She's
lying
at
in
an
an
opium den,
Like,
just letting
escaping
escaping
reality.
reality.
Because she knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And I think so. You're right. They didn't have that big scene where
I don't think it was needed, but
not that it was needed, but I think they had something close. I think they had what they needed for this movie, and that was that last scene in her bedroom. And he even says like, I guess I ain't never been this close to somebody before.
right.
And he does in McCabe's own way profess his love for her, his affection
that's
for
him doing
her.
that for sure.
And like she kind of plays coy,
Yeah.
which is interesting because that's not really something you see at any other time in the movie.
right.
You never see her that smiley, like that kind of shy with the blanket up in front of her face. Like you never really see
Yeah,
that.
almost blushing.
So it's I think a very telling scene in a very subtle way.
Yeah.
And I think it is that scene, but not.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. She's able to. He doesn't get that reciprocation necessarily, but we as the audience members do.
Another subversion, if you will.
Right.
Another subversion of something that you're right. You would probably get in a western, that kind of sweeping love scene where it's like, finally we're professing the truth about each other or whatever. Instead, you get this very quiet moment where everything is just so subtle and so small. But in this world, that's really all you got.
Right.
Well, Ray, before we wrap up, we got 2 questions to answer.
Yes.
So we've been through this conversation. We've talked a lot about McCabe and Mrs. Miller. So the first question is, do you consider McCabe and Mrs. Miller to be an anti-Western?
I think I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Only that I'm going to say it's a revisionist. I definitely think it's a different
With a
take
bare
on a
minimum
Western.
revisionist. Okay.
Yes. And maybe very much so a
Yeah.
revisionist. I definitely think there's definitely some purposeful subversion. But I want to give Western movies like more credit than just being a single lane thing.
Sure.
So I want to say that McCabe and Mrs. Miller, in my mind, does a great job of expanding the highway of what a Western can be.
I appreciate that. It's more of a positive outlook
Yes.
on the genre.
Right. So I want to think of it like that. Like I said, great job of subverting a lot of expectations.
Sure.
I think the third act does feel westerny enough to me to keep it in that
Mhm.
in that realm. And again, I'm going to use it as a movie that enhances the medium, enhances the genre.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Where do you think you fall on it?
So Rick Jewell, the guy that I mentioned earlier, who had took issue with the term anti-Western, he mentioned 3 movies that he saw as anti-Westerns, and that is Greaser's Palace, which is a Robert Downey Sr. movie, which I guarantee you've never seen.
Nope.
That's great. Dead Man, which is Jim Jarmusch's Western with Johnny Depp, another movie I'm pretty sure you've probably never seen.
I don't think so.
This one you've definitely seen. The third one is Blazing Saddles.
I have.
Yeah, so Blazing Saddles.
Many times.
Yeah, Blazing
Of
Saddles
course
is
that
flat
is,
out
I guess,
parody.
yeah.
That is a deconstruction of the genre. So that one I think for sure. So when he made his argument, it made the most sense because those, taking Blazing Saddles, even taking that one out, being a flat out parody, even with the other 2, I see where he is coming from. But even beyond that, I really agree with what you just said about taking that positive outlook on saying like this isn't necessarily something that's like anti this genre. It's not putting this genre in a box.
There you go.
And I appreciate that because I feel like that is what we do. We appreciate here at Car Ray Rob.
Exactly.
So you know what? Again, you inspired me to show you this episode because of showing me High Noon last year. Now your answer has inspired me again.
Sick.
You are inspirational, Ray. I know I said you weren't in the beginning, but that was absolutely
Well,
a
we've
lie.
had our own arc this
Seriously,
episode.
we have, and I agree with you completely. This is not an anti-Western because there is no such thing
There we go.
as an anti-Western. We
Yeah.
just expand the genre and we make it something more.
Very cool.
But
One more question.
that's only the first question. But it does seem to me, I think I might know the answer to the
Yeah.
second question,
We're
but I'm going to
horrible at
ask it
these.
anyway. And that is, Ray, did you like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and would you recommend it?
I did. I'm not
I
even gonna.
figured.
There's no reason to hesitate on
Beat
the answer.
around the bush.
Yeah, I did really like this. I'm really falling into like this Western thing. I never exposed myself to enough when I was younger. And
Sure.
in the last
You always sound like an old
few
man
years.
thing.
I know.
It felt like
it
an old
is.
man
It
thing.
did. It did. Something
I
that I would
get
watch
that.
on TV in the middle of the
Yeah.
afternoon. You couldn't watch what you wanted to watch.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is great for all the reasons that we've just spent this last 45 minutes, whatever, talking about. The cast is great. I love Warren Beatty in this. I love Mrs. Miller. I love Julie Christie in this. They were just, I think they both played their characters perfectly.
Yeah.
I find like McCabe just really compelling as you're like kind of just rooting for him to not be a schmuck. Like, where's that guy I saw in the first scene? Like, get that back, get that power back, and he never can. But in a very interesting, like, lovely way, where you're just like, he's doing everything he can to be successful to win over Mrs. Miller. He just can't be that guy. He cannot. He just doesn't have the resources, the tools,
Right.
to be what
Did the wheels finally come off in the end? We had talked about it. Do you think they finally came off, or did he,
I don't know.
does he just die himself?
He
You
seems
know what I
so
mean?
close. He came so close into winning. You know what I
Right.
mean? He killed the 3 antagonists.
Yeah.
But he couldn't save himself.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just it was a hard movie to stop watching. To turn away from. I don't know. I really enjoyed it, beginning to end.
Yeah. You got to watch more Altman. That's all I got to say.
Right. Well, great watch. Thanks again, Rob, for exposing me to McCabe and Mrs. Miller. But what else have you exposed yourself to? Speaking of TV.
Let's see. We just wrapped up Halloween.
Yes, we have.
So it's the month of October is a little hard for me, but I did manage to watch a few new things that I can share. The first one was Weapons.
I've heard so much about that. Isn't it like freaky as heck?
It is, and it's interesting because it is a horror film. It definitely is, but I feel like we're in this new generation of horror now, where horror really as a genre is kind of becoming redefined in certain ways. So like this is a movie that's built less on like jump scares and stuff, and more on just atmosphere and just that overall creepiness of how things kind of look, the visual,
right?
And I can really appreciate that. The story is surprisingly more straightforward than what you might think. But I don't want to give too much away because I do think you should watch it. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Darn it.
For being a horror movie.
Yeah.
Great performances. Julia Garner is, I think, just really great in just everything she's in. I think she's wonderful. Josh Brolin, I think, is low key one of my favorite actors right now. I mean, I just love
solid.
Josh Brolin. Eldon Ehrenreich.
Oh yeah,
is in it as well, and I think he's not in it as much, and it's structured interestingly because it kind of follows specific people that are all kind of like part of this incident, but and intertwines and shows how their stories intertwine, and the way that it's structured is really cool. So I highly recommend that. The other thing I watched was I'd been wanting to watch this movie for a long time, and I had the opportunity, and then I didn't take it for whatever reason, and now I finally took it, and it is the 1981 body horror film Possession, which stars a young Sam Neill, who we love here at Car Ray Rob.
Absolutely,
we love Sam Neill. But it is about he plays a young guy and his wife. He is like an intelligence agent. And he comes home, and his wife is just hell-bent on getting a divorce. But something is clearly wrong with her. Like, she is got something going on, and you're not really sure what it is. And, like, their relationship kind of devolves, and as this story progresses, they have a young son, and it gets kind of crazy. But, like, the performances are just absolutely nuts. And it all kind of barrels to this really kind of shocking kind of ending.
Yeah.
But it's very weird. I don't know if you would like it.
That means I won't. So
It probably means you won't. But it's a really great movie. There's a lot of subtext to the movie. You could probably do a whole episode just on that. But it's a very cult classic kind of movie, and I finally got to watch it. Andrzej Zalowski is a Polish director who made it. But it's great. It's good. The other thing that we watched is Something Wicked This Way Comes.
I've seen that on like Disney Plus.
Yeah, it's so weird because it felt like it just kind of came out of nowhere. But this movie's from like 1983, and I saw it's on Disney Plus now, and I've seen so many people online talking about it. I've seen different online film people that I follow doing videos and stuff about it and stuff. Like, well, what the hell is this? So I look up the trailer, and the trailer is super creepy. The film, not as much as the trailer kind of makes it seem. It's still very Disney, but it's Ray Bradbury screenplay, so it feels a bit like that, where it's a very classic kind of fantasy horror. They did. They absolutely did. But it is like a very classic fantasy horror kind of film. But it's got some really great performances in it. Jonathan Pryce is in it. He kind of plays like the main baddie, and he's pretty creepy in a very cool way. Jason Robards is in it, who we do love around here. But it's just kind of takes place in this small town in Illinois. Two boys are kind of like they kind of notice something weird if this new carnival comes to town,
Oh,
and
gosh.
kind of like that, yeah. Um, so, but it is interesting. I think, like I said, I think my expectations may have been a little high going
Yeah.
in. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was quite what I expected it to be. But it
Yeah.
is good.
Okay.
How about you, man?
I have finished up a lot of shows, which I'm
Uh-huh.
glad to cross some things off my list. English Teacher Season 2. I'm a
Oh, there you
big
go.
English teacher fan.
There you go.
Um,
Love them English
yeah.
teachers.
Yeah, I think you should watch it. It's such a great show. It's genuinely funny.
Yeah.
And the way the cast interacts is great. Some of the side characters are just hilarious. They literally just have this one guy. He plays a little side role in The Bear. I can't name him, but like basically like they're out for every scene. It's just like let him improv something because he's just like
Oh, that's
absolutely
funny.
cooks on this show.
Right.
Gen V wrapped
Oh,
up.
I know. I need to finish
this
Gen V.
week.
Once we get through.
Yeah.
Now that we're through Halloween, I can finally.
Solid, really solid. I think season 1 maybe a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think I found maybe the last episode would be a little bit anticlimactic, but the show, with the Andre, the real life character, dying
yeah.
weeks before they start shooting, they had to do probably a ton of rewriting, and I think
Yeah.
you can tell a little bit in the final battle, like, all right, we're trying to change as little as possible, so we're just going to do this.
Yeah.
And it works, but it's not the same.
But
and,
is it like my thing with it? But I love Gen V as kind of like a standalone thing. But do you feel like it really is just like to serve the boys and that's it?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, so
I mean, I haven't finished the season, so I don't know. But
there's opportunity for crossover of characters now.
yeah.
But it's like, some people online are saying like, the main character in Gen V, like, oh, she's gonna be the person that kills Homelander. I'm like, no, she's not.
Oh,
The
sure.
Butcher's gonna kill Homelander. So like, this is not like the crossover is not gonna be like that. Maybe they'll learn something from this girl, but like,
Right.
no, that's not
Sure.
gonna happen. If Homelander dies, it'll be by Butcher's hands.
Right.
But anyway, so anyway, I think it's a great show. I like that it's independent enough. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel, there's a little bit of crossover, but like there's like Homelander's not going to show up in this, Butcher doesn't show up in this,
Sure.
Starlight does, but very briefly.
Yeah.
So I for a spin-off show, I think it's pretty well done.
Sure.
I finished Only Murders in the Building.
Oh boy, yeah. We're only a few into that. That's another one we got to get back on now that Halloween's passed.
I mean, I don't feel like I like the show any more or any less than
That's
what I
good.
did
That's
after
actually
last
good.
season.
Because
It's been trending down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only the few episodes we're through, I'm just kind of like I love the
Yeah.
chemistry of the three, but that's kind of all the show I feel like really
Yeah.
has going for it.
It kind of
anymore.
is. It kind of is. I mean, they some of the cast gets filled out a little bit. I really do wish this was the final season, because in a way,
Yeah.
like, they're kind of saving the building, and like, oh, that would have been a cool way just to wrap it up.
Sure.
But it's not. There's another season coming.
Yeah.
So
Maybe that one will be the last one.
maybe. And then actually, the movie I watched was
Oh.
the live action How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh,
I have not
man.
ever been exposed to How to Train Your Dragons.
You watched the live
Um,
action before you watched the
And then
animated one?
I watched the animated one like a couple days later.
Oh my god.
But I thought I really liked it.
You're lucky I
it was
can't
fine.
reach over and smack you.
It was absolutely fine. Like,
I'm
I
sure
think
it's fine.
yeah. I think the people that don't like it is just that it's too similar. It's
Well,
kind of
yeah.
like a Watchmen thing,
Yeah.
maybe. But I liked it. So I watched it first for that reason, because I knew, like, if I watch the animated version first, I'm just gonna be like, why'd they even do this? I'm like, let me watch the new one, get exposed to it this way. Because I'm like, yeah, there's a couple things different that are good, but
was it necessary?
I
We're
don't know,
a little copy of a copy right now. Was it necessary?
maybe in 20 years. But not right. It is too soon.
Too soon.
It is too soon. But I think I am going to go watch the second and third one.
You should,
And then
because they're great.
Then I'll be like, oh man, they are
Yeah,
doing this way too soon.
That is a series that has yet to stop, or yet to miss for me.
Yeah. All right, and with that, I think it's time that we wrap up this episode of McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Rob, we are as cool as McCabe in Scene 1. Our audience right now can be as cool as McCabe in Scene 1, or they can slowly be deconstructed
Be a whole lot
if they
cooler than
don't
this.
follow these last couple directions. And those would be to like the podcast if they have not already liked the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if they haven't done that. leave us a review if you can. If you leave us a 5-star review, we're going to read it live on air someday. You can email us at carrayrob@gmail.com. Ask us anything you want. We'll talk to you. And you can reach out to us on Blue Sky.
Absolutely. You can now also reach out to us on Facebook at
yes.
Car Ray Rob Podcast Network. And if you would share the podcast, that would also be very helpful. We are trying to grow our listening audience, and any help with that would be very much appreciated. We will be back next week with a brand new episode of A Copy of a Copy,
Yes.
where Ray and I will be revisiting the classic Wizard of Oz and the Motown remake The Wiz, all in celebration of the soon-to-be-released Wicked for Good.
That'll be fun.
That will be fun. We will be back in 2 weeks with Ray's episode of Say Hello to My Little Film, which I'm going to boycott already.
What? You can't.
I'm taking the month off.
No, I have a good one set up for you.
Fine.
I'm going to be inspiring again.
Oh, you're going to... Okay, well, if you're going to inspire me, then I will definitely be there.
That's my goal.
Then the week after that, to wrap out this great month, we will have a brand new Hello Movies, My Old Friend, where Ray and I are very excited to revisit the John Candy, Ali Sheedy romantic comedy, Only the Lonely.
Yes, finally.
It has been one I think we've been wanting to do for a while, and we have finally decided to pull that trigger. But you are not going to want to miss it. So until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
Hey everyone, this is Ray. I want to give you guys a sneak peek at my episode of Say Hello in 2 weeks. I am going to go kind of piggyback off of what I did last year in November when I went with High Noon, black and white movie. I'm going to take Rob back to another black and white movie, but this one's going to be the 1962 Japanese movie Harakiri. It's a great movie about ronins, about loyalty and death, stories that intertwine. I think Rob's going to really like it, and there's going to be a lot to talk about. So if you haven't checked that out, do so in the next 2 weeks, and come back for our episode, and we will see you there.